We could talk about that a little, but that doesn't make for great views, and people might thumbs down and leave if they hear that.
What's shaking, guys? It's Feldy bringing in another MTG Obsession video, and today the one, the only Mr. MTG Gaming Bob in the house. Thank you so much for joining me here, my friend, on the channel. How have you been?
I've been great. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for inviting me. I'm always flattered when I get invited to different channels, and I enjoy your interview pieces. So I'm thrilled to be here and be part of that.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have you here as well. And for those who have not subscribed, I'm just going to do a quick little plug and shout out. Make sure you guys subscribe to MTG Gaming Bob below. Give him all the love and support, like all of his videos. Watch his videos incessantly so that he gets the watch time. I'll be the shameless plugger for you. And then, okay, so for those who haven't seen you, who don't know anything about you in general, they've been living under a rock. But what do you do on the channel? And
wow.
Yeah,
that's kind of a deep question, because it's almost like the answer. I was on Nikachu last week on his coffee, and he pointed out when he was doing the plug that, well, you can watch his channel, but you're more likely to see him on other people's channels, because I spent more time on like the round table and cardboard conversations and on Nikachu, and here I am. So for my channel, and not really plugging, but just to kind of explain it, I do love creating content for my channel, but I only have so much time each week I can devote to Magic. So I'm a partner. There's two people on our channel. There's Matt and there's me. And we do plan on changing the name of the channel. Like, we really want to, because no offense to those people that have loved tuning into MTG Gaming Bob, it's not fair to Matt to be on MTG Gaming Bob.
I was going to say, you see a lot of Matt on MTG Gaming Bob, but
yes,
most people are like, who's Matt? Wait, is this Bob?
Yeah. So a rebranding is in order there, but he's far more comfortable doing a lot of the nuts and bolts sort of recording and content and editing to put on the channel. Not that I don't like doing it, but I'm sort of I'm the public face. I'm the guy out there that's, not only am I on other people's streams, but if you're in the community, you'll see me in the chat on people's openings, like Twiddler and Jake and Joel are Magic and Coder Cards, and I'm all over the place. And then I'm behind the scenes in Discords, chatting with other content creators, and even on my phone, I'm the networker for our team, and Matt appreciates that. So I'm trying to keep us in the public eye, so to speak, for things outside of our channel.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think, I mean, having a team like that can operate and function like that is really magical. I mean, a lot of us are just kind of one-man shows, or that kind of thing, and it is not to say that the burnout's real, but I mean, the burnout is real if you don't have that kind of like creative energy to keep going. And as we had talked before we hit record here, we're kind of all evolving as creators and finding our own voices, and I think that's really important to have. So it's nice that you guys have that like connection and chemistry together where you can play back and forth. So
we've talked about it. I mean, we're growing slowly, but that's okay for us. We want people, no offense, if you're looking for free stuff and giveaways, we're not that channel. That's not it. We give away free advice, free opinions, interesting things to us as true, genuine Magic players and collectors, investors.
Which you will
we
get
want the
a lot
audience
of in
that's
this.
there to hear the content, right?
Yeah,
that's our main. Like, we started out with giveaways, and I talked with Rudy about it, as a matter of fact, and he cautioned me away from that. And I took that to heart, and I was starting to get burned out before I picked up Matt as a partner. Like, the channel almost died in its infancy, because it was just, started out like 10 hours a week, then 20, then 30, then 40, and I'm like, okay, I have to kind of back off a little, reset, and think about, what do I want to do with the channel? So I'm not out there to make a living. Would it be nice to earn money? Sure. But I do it, and so does Matt, because it's a passion project. We genuinely love Magic and other games. So, that's going to be a part of our channel as well. So we're not going to specialize in anything. There's no one thing. We're not the financial experts. We're not the play experts. It is a true potpourri of mostly Magic, but a lot of gaming.
A cornucopia of gaming.
There you go. I like it. Cornucopia.
I was trying to play into the potpourri of gaming. I love it.
It really is, because I think most people are not one dimensional, right?
Completely.
We have many varied interests, and I know that the algorithm favors staying in your lane, and I learned quickly I didn't want to play the algorithm game. It was
Totally.
really funny because Nikachu pointed it out behind the scenes when I was talking with him, and he said, "Wow, Bob, more people should watch you. The thing is, you just need to get in front of people. Maybe I can help you do that." It was like, I'm flattered by that, but I'm thrilled to make connections with, like, you. We've done things like, for those that aren't aware, Feldy and I have worked together on the charity drives, and we've spoken together on the round table. We speak to each other in text, on phone, and on other communication medium. So
Cardboard conversations. Yeah.
that whole thing, yeah, we've had
Yeah.
you on as a guest. You were one of our very first guests, so
It's
it's
an
like,
honor. Yeah.
I love this part of it.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people like to hear the conversations because they have the same thoughts you and I have.
Yep.
They just may not give it voice, and they're like, yeah, I want to hear about that.
It validates that, it's like, yes, that is so true. So speaking of, I want to get into just a little behind the scenes of like kind of your history, and then we'll dive into some like those big topics. So like, when did you start Magic? What got you into it? Like, I ad nauseum, people have heard my story. I was in Boy Scouts and blah, 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 blah. But what about for you, for people who don't know? And then was it like one thing that like led to another, or was it like, you just dove into Magic completely? Like, what was the impetus? Yeah.
I was going to give one answer, and then you made me sort of change to back that truck up because I had to think about it. Was it one thing that led to another? So I guess you could theoretically say that my first exposure, or what led me to Magic, was a decade before Magic existed. I played Dungeons and Dragons in junior high school in like 1983, right?
Wow.
And I played it kind of on and off, and it was very bad. If any of you are old enough to know what the 80s was like, it was not embracing of the nerd culture. It was a very ostracized thing. So I didn't really care much. I still kept playing it throughout the years. And then ultimately, I got stationed in Okinawa, Japan, didn't know anybody. On a drunken stupor, wandering around the hallways, I hear a bunch of noise coming from one of the rooms that had an open door. And so I poked my head in, and there's these two guys on the floor playing Magic. And I have no idea what this is. Never even heard of a CCG before. And I was curious, because I'm a gamer at heart. I played many different types of games.
You were drunk, so I mean, it's a perfect
Yeah,
opportunity
why
just
not?
to walk in.
And they waved me in. They're like, yeah, come in, check it out. So I sat down on the corner of the bed watching them play these weird ass cards on the floor, but it was evocative of Dungeons and Dragons, which I had enjoyed years prior. And then the guy, said, well, why don't you come back tomorrow and I'll teach you how to play, because I had no idea what was going on. So that's how I got my start, really.
Alpha, beta, 4th edition?
No,
like,
it was 1994.
Okay,
it was 1994, and it's awfully fuzzy. I don't know exactly when, but it would
probably
be
like revised timeline, maybe?
Actually more like the dark.
Okay.
So it was like August, September of 1994. I know that the next set that was coming out was Fallen Empires.
Yep.
So before that, it was kind of like, good, mostly good stuff, except, well, anyways, people didn't like white bordered cards, from Revised and Unlimited. Those are kind of poo-pooed on.
Unless you've got
and then of course, I stayed in through that. And for those who aren't familiar, that was a bad time in Magic. Fallen Empires, Ice Age, Homelands, Chronicles. It was just 4th edition, which didn't even have the dual lands. It was bad. It was not a good time.
No.
So I ducked out in 97, came back to the States, and I was bored again, didn't have a big circle of friends, got stationed in Las Vegas, saw a Magic the Gathering neon sign on a place. So I stopped in, and that's about the time I want to say it was just before either Exodus or Urza Saga.
Oh, wow.
It was right in that time frame.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy I got back in. That was my favorite era of Magic, was the Urza's block. But Stronghold was fun. Tempest was fun. Exodus was fun. It was just great all the way up through Urza's Destiny. And then net decking started becoming a thing. So I ducked out again. So just on and off throughout the years, in Magic, out of Magic. So
now, a common theme for a lot of people who have, ducked in and out is selling your collection. I know that we have spoken before about this, and it might be a sore subject for you. But
Ah,
for those who are wondering, how many times did you actually sell your collection?
so interesting question. And the answer is I've only sold my entire collection once.
Okay.
Now, in that collection were cards like Scheherazade. I had 40 dual lands, play set of dual lands, Legends cards, all kinds of stuff. I sold the whole thing in 1997 when I left Japan, coming back
Okay.
stateside. I was like, oh, this sucks. But I was, picking up $250. 40 dual lands plus Legends cards, Arabian Nights. Yeah, Antiquity. Yeah, it was that's ouch. Now, I didn't sell my collection off again because once I got back, those dual lands that I sold already burned me because they were like $5 a piece, and I was buying like 2 to 4 a week for a long, long time. And then when I got back and was into Urza Saga, they were already getting up to like $10, $15, $20 a piece, and I was like, I felt so burned by selling my collection. Swore I'd never sell them again. Fast forward a dozen years later, I suffered a bad divorce and wanted to take my daughter to Disneyland. So I sold off many reserve list things before the reserve list became like a big deal. And it was many things like selling a foil Palinchron. If you're not familiar, the value is about $700 now. Sold it for $6. Sold 4 Grim Monoliths for a total of $20. 3 Gaia's Cradles for a total of like $72. All near mint. All the things, Mox Diamond, Survival of the Fittest. I mean, we can go on and on and on. I have the list still. Sarah's Sanctums, you name it. It was Sliver Queens, Mox Diamonds.
I had the Power 9 that I sold at a garage sale. I don't think I've ever said that before. And that was like, I think I got like $45 or something like that. And that was, my mom was like, I want all this out of here. I'm going to donate whatever you don't have to my, my coworker's son so he can play. And I asked her about it the other week, and I was like, whatever happened to that? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, that those cards that I gave him were like worth like tens of thousands of dollars now, right? And she's like, so I was like, wow. All right, well, whatever, Mom, thanks.
So, I mean, I guess to sum that up and give the biggest ouch, if I had to guesstimate, and I've done this a few times, the total amount I would have today, had I kept everything, the things that I've sold would be worth probably close to about $250,000. And I got probably a grand total of about $1,400.
That is going to be a post-edit destruction video on screen. That is bad.
So that's why I always tell people, like, don't sell. Like, I don't know if you've heard me say this, but I say it all the time because people are talking about selling, and I'm like, don't sell unless you have to.
Yeah.
Just don't sell unless you have to. It's not even just a reserve list because you never know, and you never know what's going to hurt.
Right. I mean, if you had hindsight to go back, I mean, dual lands, whoever thought, like, I was trading those with my friends for like Righteousness and Force of Nature and Lord of the Pit, and cards that would help me win the game. I was like, I don't want to land. I want this, and then.
So the first time selling it off, understand, Magic was heading in a bad direction. Like, it was a couple of years of experiencing Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt and AFR. It was like for years. It was it's like, okay, whatever they had special. I understand it wasn't very big back in the early mid 90s, especially not overseas.
Right.
So I had no frame of reference, and the internet wasn't a big thing. So it was a very, very different world.
And you never knew what set was going to come out and what was actually going to be playable and fun. And then
I was miserable. They were just bad. Homelands kind of broke it for me. I bought, a box of Homelands, and it was just so bad. It was just bad. And you're like, this, I thought the game essentially kind of like was going to die. It's just like, okay, this is terrible. It's heading in a bad direction. Whatever magic they had in a bottle, they lost it. And you see that with card games now. Look at how much people are frowning. As hyped as Flesh and Blood was, look at how toxic it is now. They're like, oh, it's going to die. It's terrible. Magic had its moments, people, that it was super duper bad. And it was, it was no older than Flesh and Blood. It was only 3-4 years old when I sold off. It was like, okay, the failed experiment.
Yeah, so, exactly.
But would I have done that again? Probably, given the environment, seeing what I was seeing and what I had access to, probably. Um, and even with, I don't know, the one with my daughter, it's very hard to be bitter about that because it was such a bad time in my life, and to be able to take my daughter to Disney was such a win for me.
I was gonna say you got so many other memories from it. It like helps offset the oof factor.
I didn't. So let me kind of clarify that one too. So I had never intended to sell the cards. I have always gotten back money from my income tax return.
Yep.
Always, since year one. I always claimed zero, and always never. I always had that fear. I don't want to. My stepfather got burned by the IRS. We had an audit in our house for like months. It was bad.
Oof.
So with the taxes, whenever I started working, it's like, okay, to claiming zero, I never want to owe taxes. And somehow that year I got divorced. Instead of getting back money, which I had planned to use to pay for the Disney trip, I got hit with a $1,400 tax bill. And I was like, so now I have this credit card charged up with Disney vacation stuff, flights, tickets, everything. And then on top of it, a $1,400 bill. I was like, oof. So I was sort of scrambling to go, how do I cover this, $2,800 deficit that I have?
Yeah.
And, if I had known, hindsight, that they were going to rock it like they did, I probably would have, I don't know, gotten a second job, tried to borrow money from someplace else, because I would have long paid that back. But I didn't want to go into deeper debt.
Yeah.
And especially at that time, I was 40 years old, having to live with my parents.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a bad time of life.
Okay. So you just mentioned like the financial side of things. And I think that's something that you and I have an interest in, and it might chap a lot of people's asses here, but the reality of what we do with YouTube and the hype of things, and Magic coming out with 18 sets a year. I mean, literally it feels like every week something else is coming out, or like a new release or sneak peek comes out. It's like the financial part of it is actually something that a lot of people touch on for like Moxman. He does a great job with like, here, this is the investing market. Matt Caster does the stock, kind of stuff. But what they don't talk about is your personal responsibility with the financial side of things. And I think that's something that you and I have had some conversations off topic with, but I think it's important to kind of touch on, and I know that you have some thoughts on it, and wanted to just get your opinion on, I guess, initial investing into Magic. Like, what would you tell somebody to say, okay, I am starting out in Magic. I'm just trying to get my feet wet. I don't want to necessarily crack a box open, but let's just say I've got $200 to spend. What would you tell them?
Wow. Lots of stuff to unpack there.
I know.
So part of it would be like, well, what's my onus? What is my motivation for giving this information, right? For even why it was funny when we ended a stream on Cardboard Conversations, my partner Matt, at the very first thing he said, like when I'm always cautioning people and like save your money and never spend on credit and all those types of things, he said, quite frankly, and I mean he's a good guy, but he said, why do you care? I was like, that's a very interesting question. I wish we had said it on air. Because in all honesty, I'm just that kind of guy that, I guess you can say it, I like cliques or my group, my club. I like my people. So I feel that people are listening to the sound of my voice about Magic, whether we've ever had a conversation or not. I feel a responsibility to protect my clan, my people. There's 7 billion people out there in the world. And you know what? The other 7.9 billion can will do whatever they want, but Magic people are my people. So I feel like I want them to have a good experience with it. I think I want them to have a healthy experience with Magic, because I've seen both sides where it can get unhealthy.
Well, and so I think just to piggyback on that real quick is, I think people who don't realize, or who have never been in debt, don't realize the crushing effects of debt and how quick it compounds. And so that's why I think I think your heart is trying to say, look, like, you don't want to be in that place, especially with cardboard, right? I mean, it's
So and it can really, it might not even be necessarily the cardboard that led to it, But if you're stretching thin or you're on credit card, your car engine blows up, and then suddenly you're kind of in debt and you regret that $200 box you just bought, because now it's throwing you in deeper debt. And now you don't like Magic anymore because it's now this negative thing that caused this really bad thing to occur in your life.
Right.
So I'm nobody's daddy, but that's where it comes from. I just thought that I'd want to start there as a foundation, because even my own partner said, why do you care? Why are you saying this? So that's why I say these things. I would start, honestly, not spending a penny. The very first place I would start is the tutorial on Arena. As much as I hate Arena, it's a great place to start to get a basic understanding of play lands, get mana, play cards, because I think you do have to have some understanding of what the game is and what the cards are to recognize a set that has good cards. How would you know if you've never done anything with the cards and you have no clue how it's played to know how good a set is, like Modern Horizons 2?
Yep.
Like, you have no idea what, except the art, the difference between Modern Horizons 2 and AFR.
Yeah.
Right. The art and the price, and they look the same. So it's the same number of cards.
Modern Horizons 2 definitely looks better than AFR.
Some of it. Like, I love the borderless Gnawbone. I mean, there's some
gorgeous cards in
AFR.
I don't like the showcase in AFR, but that's a whole other story.
If you're talking about the rulebook art, real pooper, real bad.
Yeah.
But sketch art in Modern Horizons 2 is also pretty garbage.
Yeah, that's true.
But, and the module lands just really tickled me, because, like I said, I have a history of Dungeons and Dragons, and boy, did that piece fired on all cylinders. The rulebook art, I didn't even like it back in the day, and now you're making it the special version of the card.
Yeah,
it was I always loved the cover of the books for Dungeons and Dragons, not the art that was in the monster manual and stuff. It's like, wow, what? And now they're drew this
coming out with Commander Legends 2, which is in the same style, and I'm like, oh yeah, I thought you guys would at least try to evolve it a little bit. Anyway,
we can get into that a little bit later about Commander Legends 2.
We have all sorts of topics to talk about.
But so starting, like, it depends on what they're going to do. Like, I classify people in 3 categories for Magic involvement, and they're not mutually exclusive, but you have the investing, collecting, and playing, and that's generally where you fall. Some people do any combination of those, or just one of those. My very good friend, and I'm starting a Magic journey in the last month with him, is pretty much just in the investing side. So we're going through the financial piece
completely, right?
Well, he's wanted to crack. It's mostly sealed, but the investing part of it is sealed.
Okay.
But the curiosity part in him, because he's doing okay financially, and he can crack stuff, and he wants to, because he understands there's hype, and and he pulled a Ragavan when we opened the Modern Horizons 2, and he was very excited about it.
That's awesome. I have yet to pull a monkey.
Oh, I've pulled 3 of those, but I have yet to pull a Solitude. I pulled 2 borderless ones.
Yeah.
I pulled 3 monkeys, 2 borderless, non-foil, and 1 pre-release. So, very special versions of Ragavan. Yes. I don't have a normal, but I pulled 0 Solitudes.
That's insane. So we're basically just opposite with Solitudes and Ragavan. So,
wow, it's ridiculous. But
but you're
at any rate, so he's cracking just for that sort of experience. So he doesn't need to crack a bunch. He's not, he's not really getting into the play aspect, or even heavy in the collectability aspect of it. Like, I collect stuff and I like having it on my shelves and looking at it.
Yeah.
So the first question would be to somebody just starting out, if you have $200, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to play because it's a new game? And honestly, since Commander is so pervasive out there, that's where I'd start right away. And I'd probably start with precons. Yep. I'd probably start with the precon and saving some of that budget for upgrading a precon. Talk with them. There's no like simple one size fits all. And we'll get into that in just a second. It's not just as simple as like, here's a formula you can apply to everything for success in Magic. It takes mental effort, people. It's just, you have to research stuff.
Yeah.
So sit with your friend, find out what kind of player they might be. Do they tend more towards the control, or smash your face with big creatures, or burn you with spells? And see what their personality is like, and then point them towards the appropriate precon commander deck. And that's where I would start, even though it's complicated. But yes, that's where I would start.
Okay.
Now, and save some budget for upgrades.
I like your advice on the arena, and I know you're not a huge arena guy.
No.
But the honest truth is, I think that's a really great way to get to know the game because it is so easy and friendly. And the
Ooh,
thing well,
I
in
wouldn't say it's friendly. It's the
I would say,
farthest thing from
well,
friendly.
friendly in
It's
terms of like you get to play the
user friendly.
tutorials at your pace, right? So it's like you're understanding the game, each color, what each one does.
Sure.
Like you have no idea, what does green do? Well, green is all about the big monsters versus control, which is what blue is about,
Sure.
So you get to understand it that way. But Arena has its own set of challenges, but I would highly suggest not investing any money into Arena because
No.
at the end of the day, you literally have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, and if they turn the servers dark, you're just out.
Correct. So as much as I try to dabble in Arena, I really like the gameplay of Arena in terms of like the animations and like, but I don't like that it's just solely 1v1. And I don't like that it feels way too crafted, So, but that's
It
another,
has no interaction with
yeah,
people.
yeah, that's a whole
It
other
might as well
dimension.
be the computer. Actually, when I play Arena, 99% of the time I'm playing against Sparky. I have more
Yeah,
fun playing against Sparky than I do against people.
yeah, exactly.
So
Anyway, I didn't mean to divert, but I just wanted to
no,
throw
that's
that
fine.
out there for people who are new, if they might have interest in Arena, don't go and spend money on Arena. Just
Spend $0 on Arena is my advice.
correct.
Ever.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, there are
certainly
tons of
bad.
codes out there for Arena, by the way. You can just go Google all the free codes. You'll get a ton of cards. You'll be able to play and understand the game.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you on that. Don't spend money on Arena. And honestly, I wouldn't even spend money on MTGO.
Yeah. Is that even a thing still? I didn't think they actually like
sure.
really were investing into that. Okay.
Sure. Actually, they just spun it off to Daybreak Games, and
Yeah.
they're investing like 2-3 million or something in it.
Wow.
No, so
Interesting.
we'll see where that goes. I don't know. As far as like starting out, if they intend to play, start with Commander, start with the precons. They're solid. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to design your deck, and keep some of that budget. I'm a big believer in not blowing your whole wad on something, right? I'm a big believer in saving up. That's been my message all year long. Save up for double flippy masters. That's where it's going to
Oh my
be.
gosh, Brothers of War, those two.
There's great deals out there right now. I think Kaldheim for $81 a box on Amazon is just bonkers.
Okay, can
Like
I
it's a
just say
great
this?
set. And
They are raising the price of everything across the board. Well, for the most part. I mean, it's total cash grab for Wizards. There's no increase for them in terms of the volume that they're printing. I mean, ink might go up a little bit. They're trying to reinvest in it's almost like Apple. You're not paying for today's device, you're paying for the future technology. And I think that's what they're trying to do.
I'd almost
But
argue that their costs have gone up just like any other company because of gas prices alone. Like that
well,
alone, just transporting goods and whatnot is just,
I don't
inflation's
disagree
a
with
real
that.
thing.
I get it. But I mean, I don't think that their prices have gone up 11% for the game. I think it's gone up,
No,
4 to 5%, and they're just trying to piggyback some extra for research and development for later on. So the biggest thing I think is with this price increase, they set Unfinity to $200 at pre-release. And all these local game stores sold it. And now the cost is going to be $300. And where's that extra 1/3 going to come from? They are going to literally have to eat it. And you can go guarantee your $220 on Amazon right now, price guaranteed for Unfinity. And the boxes are going to come out and they're going to be $300.
actually, I pre-ordered my Infinity in February as soon as they canceled or pushed back the date because like it's going to go up. I did not plan on buying it. But the second that they delayed it, you can look at my order. I think it was February 28th. I bought my draft boxes at $99 a piece. Locked
That's going to be
in.
a
They
steal.
only let me. Well, I locked in 3, and I shared that with Pat and Matt. I know Pat also locked his in at those prices because I knew this was coming. I've been talking about price increases since last year.
Yeah, well, it was bound to happen.
Well, and to be fair to WOTC, they've kept their prices low for decades, right?
Yeah.
When I started playing, packs were $3 a pack.
True.
So 25 years later to have packs at $3 a pack at the LGS is just nuts.
And I
It's
think,
like, how did it not increase over the years?
yeah, but I do think you look at their revenue, not just, their overall profit from last year alone was in the billions, right? Like billion, like that's almost impossible to comprehend that they made that much money. So the price increase, they're not hurting for money. And I think in a time of a recession that's about to just implode on us, I think an 11% increase is just a little bit like of a, I don't know, for the playability of the game, it seems a little far-fetched. I could understand like a 4 or 5% increase, but 11's a little bit of a stretch for me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I'm actually, I hate to be on the other side of that fence, but like I said, they've been keeping it low for so long. Most products out there, almost everything that you buy, whether it's, this knife, or you want to talk about ridiculous price increases, how about sleeves and,
Yeah,
these alone, and most people play with these. I don't
yeah,
know if you play with the perfect fits, but just like a year and a half ago, I was buying these for like
$2.
$29 for 1,000.
Yeah,
Now they're like $60 for 1,000.
I know.
So I don't hate on the WOTC. Now don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things at WOTC I am not a big fan. I'm not a cheerleader, but the price increase, I think they're doing it wrong because of
I
this
agree.
sort of response.
Yeah.
That I think they should be increasing their prices every year, because raises go up every year.
I agree.
Costs go up every year. That they should be doing this in a less painful way. Doing an 11% increase one time in a decade, that's like less than 1% a year, because compounding it would be much bigger.
Yeah,
So if they had done a 1% increase over the last 10 years instead of a one-time 11% increase 10 years down the road, nobody would be paying attention.
correct.
It
And
wouldn't
I
hurt.
agree with that. And I think the thing that also gets me is that they say that their costs have gone up, but they're not going equally across the board, where it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If your cost is going up, you're obviously pushing it on the products that are selling the highest and the highest volume. If price truly increased for you, you would kind of maybe even make it 8% across everything, and then you have this equal distribution of it. But they have obviously the numbers in front of them that make sense. And I mean, obviously being behind the scenes in a business, I understand that they are out for profit. They just hired new officers to actually bring in, and I'm sure they are making 6 figures plus. They have expenses that they have to make. They're going to do research and development. They have all these new technology of new foiling treatments that they are actually trying to bring out, which is very cool as a player to see. But I do find it a little suspicious that they are doing this random increase, but that's just my 2 cents.
So for my 2 cents, I'm actually okay with the increase. That's not where I bash on WOTC. Now, getting into where WOTC goes wrong, that list is much, much longer. And
Let's
to
dive
be
in.
quite frank, even regarding like this price increase, and where they're the worst at is transparency.
Yes.
WOTC is horrible with transparency. If I could pick one thing for them to be transparent about, Flesh and Blood does it. They do it in a superior way to WOTC.
Yeah.
How about you release your print run numbers?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to release them while it's still even in print.
Correct.
How about a year after it goes out of print that you've done it, so that investors and collectors and want to have some form of gauge to know how much of this stuff is floating around out there.
Yep. Well, I have a feeling they don't do it for a reason that we'll talk about in just a little bit.
Well, and that feels shifty. Nobody, whether you're an investor or a player, it doesn't matter why they're keeping it hidden. It's shifty to your buying public.
It is.
Period.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the only way to perceive that as a public, is that you're hiding something.
Correct. Well, and they are hiding.
That's a bad relationship for a customer. Other companies that, like my company, they release their production numbers and they release the behind the scenes things, because you have the fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders that are potentially planning on investing in. Hasbro is a publicly traded company. So to not reveal these numbers, it feels like there's, like we just talked about, like, it's okay. I feel it's okay for the price increase. I don't feel it's okay to hide things, to be shifty, to not be transparent with what you're doing, when you make mistakes. Here's what's on the horizon. here's our print run numbers. It feels like a one-way street with them that is just purely trying to dip into my pockets.
Yeah, I could not agree more on that. That is, it feels very slimy when you kind of unearth it a little bit, and you're like,
Sure.
oh, this is just like, I don't like how
Dirty.
they,
I feel
yeah,
dirty.
just, it is. It's like, oh
and people
man.
don't dive into it.
No, and they
most
don't,
you don't see this on content creation about how much they're hiding and shifting and it's a shame, because it would be simple enough. You cannot tell me that they, as a large corporation, do not have the statistics in today's information age to know exactly how much they're printing, where it went, how much was sold, what's still in the warehouse. If they do that, that is so irresponsible that if they don't know,
yeah,
that's just you're not going to convince me that that's true for $1 billion company.
Printers these days have to have the sheet counts on them to, like, in order to even make a press run. So like in the just straight up printing world, you have to have that, because in order for the amount of ink the press operate, like, there's all the different statistics that go into a print run. It's like, you can't even, and you have to have that number. It has to be there. Like,
there's
now,
no way they don't know.
Correct.
Sorry.
And now,
just,
yeah.
No way.
Now, are you going to take a couple of the sheets out for, your, to evaluate it? Absolutely. You're going to do your test print and your print runs and, making sure the quality control
But
is
you're talking
there.
about fractions of a percent,
Correct.
There.
It's
we
not
don't know
like they're
even
gonna,
rough percentage.
Exactly. I mean, you don't know if there's 30,000 or 50 million, I mean,
right.
Who knows? That is, it feels slimy. That's one of the things that I have a beef with WOTC. But I want to touch on something that you and I are very much in the same boat on.
Thank you for coming to our show, and good night.